Paris Bennett was only 13 years old when he killed his 4-year-old sister Ella. He gave a disturbing call to 911, confessing what he had just done and was arrested soon after this. He gave an interview several years later where he detailed the crime, and while he did seem remorseful, it was difficult to take seriously considering the terrifying nature of his crimes. He seemed to possess some psychopathic tendencies, but in the interview he states that he is sane. He mostly talks about the length of his prison sentence, the toll it's taken on him, and the details of his sentencing. He rarely mentions his sister or the life she could have had, which doesn't really help his case. It's an interesting interview and has garnered some split opinions as to whether or not Paris Bennett was actually remorseful for his crime or if he was pandering to the justice system so that they would go easier on him.
I remember being angry all day long and thinking all day long, I want to hurt somebody if I'm going to snap. And it wasn't initially Ella. I thought about the babysitter. I thought about going down the street and seeing somebody I knew. And I thought about hurting a stranger. I don't remember exactly what point I decided it's going to be Ella. For a few moments, for a few minutes after it happened, it almost seemed like it was a dream, like it hadn't just happened. Because I had left the room and everything, and I was just hyperventilating. And then I had walked back in and I had looked and I had seen Ella and what I did. And it hit me like a punch in the gut that no, I really just did that. And I called 911 because I felt like I need to do something about this. Maybe they can do something. Maybe it's not too late.
Monty Ralph Rizzle, also known as just Monty, was a serial killer who killed 5 women in the 1970s. He was only 18 years old when he was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences, making him one of the youngest serial killers that decade. Obviously, with the case so interesting, people wanted to talk to Monty and figure out why he did what he did, but a substantial interview would not happen until Rizzle was a fully grown man. This did not stop the interview from being as dark as any other interview with the killer. Robert Ressler, an FBI agent, was creating psychological profiles for these killers and spoke to Monty to try and figure out what made him tick. In the interview, Monty details his crimes, showing little remorse while doing so. It's a disturbing interview overall with the killer who flew under the radar in terms of the public knowing him. But just because he is lesser known doesn't make his crimes any less chilling.
It got worse with each one. Mm-hmm. I mean, not only in terms of violence.
Mm-hmm. You get more authoritarian now?
More.
You're not negotiating anymore.
No, it's more demanding, more power involved. Just total control, domination. But I had such power and control over another human being.
Yeah.
I mean, and that made me feel invincible.
Now, you weren't there waiting for somebody, were you?
No. It was just a spur of the moment. I was out walking, and I had all this stuff on my mind, and it just seemed like something snapped in me. I mean, she was just unfortunate that I was there and she came home, you know.
Ed Kemper was a serial killer who murdered 10 people from 1964 to 1973. When he was eventually caught, Kemper gave a number of interviews for investigative journalists and the press. While many killers use these interviews as a chance to profess their innocence and lie about something that's been said against them, Kemper was very straightforward, admitting to everything that he had done and speaking in a very candid manner about his actions. Kemper has an IQ of 145, making him a certified genius, so while he may be a cold-blooded killer, he is also a very intelligent and articulate man, which makes his interviews that much more chilling. In the documentary entitled Murder, No Apparent Motive, Kemper gives an interview where he speaks about his relationship with his mother, his methods of killing, and the other people who committed similar acts. It is a disturbing but strangely insightful interview from one of the most fascinating and chilling serial killers of the last few decades.
You were involved in the campus because your mother worked there?
Yes. I was also involved in killing co-eds because my mother was associated with college work, college co-eds, women. and had had a very strong and violently outspoken position on men for much of my upbringing. My mother was a sick, angry, hungry, and very sad woman. I hated her, but I wanted to love my mother. And I watched the alcohol increase. I watched her social life drop off. I watched her get bizarre. She had terrible pain from her life, earlier life, her upbringing, a failed marriage with my father. I'm a constant reminder of that failure. I hate to distill it down into such, into one-word realities like that. There's a lot that leads into that happening, but that is what happened. They represented not what my mother was, but what she liked, what she coveted, what was important to her, and I was destroying it.
Why did you actually kill the girls?
My frustration, my inability to communicate socially, sexually. I wasn't impotent, but emotionally I was impotent. I was scared to death of failing in male-female relationships. I knew absolutely nothing about that whole area, even if just sitting down and talking with a young lady. I need to be able to really communicate, and ironically enough, that's why I began picking people up. And I'm picking up young women, and I'm going a little bit farther each time. It's a daring kind of a thing. At first there wasn't a gun. I'm driving along. We go to a vulnerable place where there aren't people watching, where I could act out, and I say, no, I can't. And then a gun is in the car, hidden. And this craving, this awful, raging, eating feeling inside. I could feel it consuming my insides, this fantastic passion. It was overwhelming me.